Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining me again here on Robin's Ramblings. Today I want to talk about frugal living and how anyone can kind of get in that mindset of living a little bit more frugally. Doesn't matter how much money you make. I know that a lot of people are in survival mode, and so that's the only thing they can do. They're trying to be as frugal as possible because everything, all the money is allotted for. Every dime goes to bills, rent, all of that kind of stuff. And I am keeping that particular, I am keeping that in mind when I'm talking about this, because I know a lot of people have no choice but to be frugal. They don't spend money on expensive things. They don't have the money to spend. But this is sort of also a video about just being in that mindset even when we don't have to be. Being frugal about the things we do in life, even though we don't necessarily need to be. So this is just a video about how I personally and my husband live a little frugally, how we cut corners and kind of things of that nature. I have my cup of tea here, and so as you can see, it's going to be a little bit of a long episode. So thanks so much for joining me. Let me take a sip of my tea. So, I have some tips and pointers on how to live frugally, how to be a little bit more frugal, and that doesn't mean that we can't treat ourselves. That doesn't mean from time to time we can't do fun things or, buy that nice outfit or whatever it is that we want to do. But for the most part, if we're in that mindset, we have a tendency not to overspend and not to spend on things we really don't need. And that's sort of that comes from having to survive. A lot of that mindset comes from having to do that. We have to pay the bills, and any amount of money after that that's left buys food and buys gas for our vehicles and clothes to put on our backs and all of that jazz. But hopefully there's extra money after that to invest, to save, to pay off bills, which is the big thing. Like you want to work towards paying those bills off if you possibly can, paying above that limit, minimum limit, and so on and so forth, so that way you can actually get a little bit above the water. Hopefully, eventually you'll be treading in the water and it won't even feel threatening at all. But there are people who have millions of dollars that live frugally. You don't have to live this enormous, lavish lifestyle when you have lots of money either. So you can take that along with you through life, no matter what the situation. And I feel like it's super important to be mindful of the way we spend money, to be mindful of how we're spending our money. So let's talk about the difference between people in survival mode and the wealthy. People who spend frugally still, who ride the subway, and who do public transportation in the big cities, who avoid buying flashy, expensive name brand items or luxury items just because it's a status symbol. These are the types of things that wealthy people with class, and I say with class, don't do. They don't buy flashy things. They don't buy flashy cars and so on and so forth and things of that nature. So let's talk about survival mode first and foremost, because I have absolutely been in survival mode every once in a while. We get in that situation, or we were born in that situation. We're trying to climb out of poverty, the poverty line. So of course, the obvious things. If you're spending money on luxury items, if you're buying super expensive shoes, or you've bought a luxury, if you have a Lincoln parked out in front of your, tiny apartment building in wherever you are, if you've got a Cadillac and you're, you know what I mean? If you've spent more than you have just to be, how do I say this? Just to be flashy, you are already not living frugally. And it doesn't mean you can't buy nice things for yourself when you have the money to do so, but it makes more sense to me to save the money and spend it on a vehicle that makes more sense, that's not as expensive, not to buy brand name expensive items. I understand that buying a little bit more expensive items, sometimes they will last you longer. A more expensive middle of the road pair of shoes will last you longer than a pair of shoes from Walmart. Guaranteed, they'll be more comfortable, they'll last you longer, they'll look better for the long haul. I'm not saying don't spend money on items that make sense to spend money on, because in the long run, those things are gonna last you. I mean spending $2,000 on a pair of boots or on a purse or something absolutely ridiculous, spending a few $500 on a pair of boots or however much more than you have, and spending that. So I would definitely say budget. That is the first thing I would say to do, is what do you make, what do you bring home every month, and budget, or every 2 weeks or once a week or however you get paid. Budget that income and write down all the things you owe, all the bills you owe first. And then after all those bills, whatever's left, that's what you have to spend on food, on whatever. And a lot of people are upside down. They owe more than they're making. And that's a scary situation. You're homeless, or you're living with someone because you lost your house, or you can't even afford rent, so on and so forth. And so things are not looking good for you. And hopefully they look up. But I would say the first thing to do is to watch your spending and look at what you're spending money on. And if you're trying to show off, or you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and you're struggling to keep the bills paid, and you're struggling to feed yourself or your family, then it's time to knock those things off. Those things are not important. You don't need the toys, you don't need the boat, you don't need the four-wheelers, you don't need the way too expensive house in this ridiculous neighborhood. You don't need those things if you're having a hard time keeping up with it. If it's not a struggle, wonderful, great, go have fun, do those things. But if it's a struggle to just make ends meet, and you're working one really awful job that you hate, or 2 or 3 jobs, little jobs, or just whatever you're doing to hustle to get those luxury items, and you're stressed out and you're not happy, it's probably time to reevaluate. So anyhow, on the other flip side of that, there are people in the middle class that think that they need those items. In order to feel successful, they need the nice brand new whatever. They need the nice brand new whatever. They need the house in the suburbs. They need this, they need that. They need, all of the status symbol stuff that you can think of, because I can't even think of it, because I don't think about those types of things. Not really. And so a roof over my head, owning your own home is huge. Even if you're mortgaged, I feel like it's important, because you're paying money for yourself in the long run. And if you can double those payments and pay the house off faster, more power to you. That's fantastic. So let's get into the tips. I guess we should talk about that, because I can't really speak for wealthy people who are frugal, because I'm not a millionaire or a billionaire, so I don't know what that's like, at least not yet. Maybe never, but that's okay. So what are the types of things that you can do to save money? Well, I've got a list here. Let me look at my list. Even the simple things make a difference in the long run. I'm going to take a sip of tea. So the first thing I would say is make a grocery list. My mom always used to do this, and she would tell us, well, if it's not on the grocery list, we're not going to get it at the store. And it worked. When we were in the store as little kids, she would show us the list and she would say, well, it's not on the list, so we can't get it. And it was convincing enough for us to go, oh, okay. We didn't, very rarely, I think, did we throw a hissy fit in the grocery store. But as adults, it's really hard to say no to certain items, or to live frugally on the grocery list. And I would say don't go to the grocery store hungry, because you will end up buying more and things you don't need. Impulse buys are a lot higher There's a lot higher likelihood of impulse buys if you go to the grocery store hungry, and we all know this. It's a pretty obvious thing because I have done it and it's not pretty when I get home. You should see the stuff I buy. Cookies and all kinds of stuff that I didn't need and that weren't on the list. So if you can stick to a list, it helps with the grocery bills. You know, buy things that are on sale if you can. You don't have to buy name brand stuff. I like to buy things that are healthier, but you don't have to go fully organic all the dang time. That's expensive. That gets really expensive, and some people they're in a place where they can't afford that at the moment. Avoid the middle aisles, and what I mean by that is avoid the junk food aisles. Don't buy chips and prepackaged foods and things of that nature are really a lot more expensive for what you get. So what I mean is, if you're going to do macaroni and cheese, buy a bag of macaroni and go buy the cheese and learn how to make it from scratch, because it will save you a fortune in the long run, because those little boxes of macaroni or whatever it is that you're buying, they're convenient. They have everything together, but you're paying more in the long run for them. And it won't stretch as far, and you'll have to buy more. And plus the packaging, you know, you're spending money for the packaging and the name on it and all of this kind of stuff. So that would be my advice. Try and avoid prepackaged things that you can make from scratch, like macaroni and cheese. You know, learn how to make your own pizzas at home. Those are awesome. In fact, they're so much better than buying pizza from, say, like a pizza joint and bringing it home. It's so much easier. You can even make a pizza pre-made and put it in the freezer for later, like wrap it up and put it in the freezer for later. There's so many tips and tricks on how to save money at the grocery store when it comes to cooking. And I would say, if you do not know how to cook from scratch, learn how to cook from scratch because not only does it taste so much better and it's so much better for you, but it's going to save you money in the long run. I would definitely say learn how to cook from scratch. You can make some pretty awesome and amazing meals for very little. Next on my list, this is kind of a silly little thing, but it's something that I do to save money and to just save from using up too many paper products, I guess you could say. I use, instead of buying dish sponges to wash my dishes, I don't own a dishwasher. We just wash our dishes by hand. But I use white rags. You can buy them in the pack at whatever outlet store you buy things from. And I just buy the white wash rags. They're really cheap. They're like $3 for a pack of 10 or a pack of 12. I don't know how many are in a pack, but there's a lot. And I'll use them on my dishes, and when they get stained or whatever, I'll reuse them as cleaning rags for the house, like dusting rags and cleaning up messes and just general stuff like that. And then I can toss them away because I don't feel too guilty about it. And that really saves on using paper towels, on buying the dish cleaner sponges that they have a tendency to get germs and stuff in them anyways, and they kind of gross me out. And I actually, what I do with my dish rags is I bleach them. So I'll bleach them in hot water and they're clean and they're brand new again. And then when they get too stained, I'll use them as cleaning rags for around the house. So you save so much time and effort and money and just all of that by buying rags. So there's so many different ways to save money like that and to, you know, save on paper towels. I use hand towels in the kitchen. A lot of people use hand towels in the kitchen instead of using paper towels to dry their hands off and stuff. And a lot of people use cloth napkins as well. And you can make your own cloth napkins. There are tons of YouTube videos on that kind of stuff. Learning how to sew. That's a good segue into this one. Learning how to sew is going to save you a decent amount of money. If you have a pair of jeans and they need mended, if you have a zipper that broke, if you want to make pillowcases or napkins, sorry, it took me a second. I think I need another sip of tea. Napkins, if you know how to make all that kind of stuff, it's going to save you money in the long run. I love to buy pillowcases per each season, but I also like to make them, and it's a lot cheaper to make them. So just little things, stuff like that. Let's see, eat out less. there's another one. Eat out less. So my husband and I don't eat out very much at all. We probably eat out once every few months, honestly. We do not do it very often. And it's, number one, it's healthier not to eat out very often. And secondly, it just saves you a ton of money. So there's that. There is no need for an expensive gym membership. I need to like just put this in big bold letters. You do not need a gym membership. Unless you're traveling a lot like a friend of mine and she uses the showers while she's doing that. You do not need a gym membership because there are tons of ways to get in shape, stay in shape without a gym. There's free YouTube videos that you can screen mirror onto your TV or watch. You can go for a run, you can go for a walk, you can do all of the things that a gym would provide and then some. Now, if you're needing motivation and you're needing a personal trainer, I feel like you could probably hire a personal trainer into your home. But other than that, if you're trying to save money, do not get a gym membership because you will never get rid of it. It's the gift that keeps on giving. All right, what else? Save your loose change. You would be surprised what a jar of change will do for you when you're, getting to the bottom of the wallet and there's nothing left and you have a big old jar of change you've been saving up for a year and a half, 2 years, and you go cash that puppy in and you got $50 in your hand for whatever, groceries or a treat or, taking a little night out. Just as a treat, it's a really cool idea to be able to see how much of your change actually, how it adds up. And it's a really good lesson in what saving can do, even in the little tiny percentage that you do. If you can't save in a savings account, this is a great way to kind of get a little extra cash here and there. Buy things on sale, I already said that. Cook from scratch, I already said that. Another one that I'm sure a lot of people do already, but the Queen of England actually does this. I read this about her the other day and I thought it was kind of funny. She turns off lights in the palace to save energy. Isn't that awesome? I think that's pretty cool. So turn off lights. If you're not in a room, turn the light off. Use LED bulbs. They're starting to come out with better ones that don't look so horrible. They've got the yellow tinted LED bulbs and stuff like that that look a little bit better, that aren't so caustic to the eyes, I guess you could say. And another one, kind of on the eating and grocery type section, is eating leftovers. My husband and I eat leftovers till they're gone. So if I make a pot of chili, we'll eat it for a few nights. Now, if we're getting sick of it and we want to not waste it, we'll freeze it. So a lot of things you can freeze. You can freeze chili, you can freeze soups, you can freeze all kinds of stuff and save a ton of money doing that. It also just makes sense to eat the rest of the food. Wash laundry in cold water. So I don't do this with my towels or my bleached items, like my rags I wash in hot water with bleach just because I feel like it gets them a little bit cleaner. But the cold water is a big thing. So I usually wash cold. I wash cold anyways for the darks and the bright colors and stuff like that. So it's just a step farther to basically do most, if not all, of your washes with cold water. I would also say you can dry your clothes on those little racks or dry your clothes on a little clothesline in your house during the winter. If you do have a yard, dry your clothes on the line in the summer. That'll save you a ton of money, and you don't have to buy a dryer if you do go that route. Now, I'm a little bit spoiled. I have a dryer, but both of our dryer and washer are used. We bought them used. We did not buy them brand new, and they're starting to get a little quirky, especially the washer. You have to press the lid down to get it to do the wash cycle because the lid is a little bent, but it still works. And until it doesn't, we'll keep using it. It's not the prettiest washer. It's kind of old, But you don't have to have the top of the line washer that sings to you when your laundry is done. Now eventually I'll probably end up with a washer like that because this one will break, and that will be the only option I have. So those are a couple things. This is a big one. Don't have cable TV. Don't get satellite, don't get cable TV. They're unnecessary. You can spend your time reading books, you can spend your time watching movies. Like we don't even do Netflix, so we don't pay for Netflix, we don't pay for Hulu, we don't pay for any of those services. So watch movies, things of that nature. There are a lot of ways around it. You can entertain yourself in other ways and save a ton of money, and you will be amazed at how much time you get back just from not having to flip through 1,000 channels of nothing. So that's a good one. Thrift store shopping is huge. So I really think that thrift store shopping, a lot of people do it. They do it for fun, they do it to save money. I have done it for years to save money and because it's a lot of fun. You can find, if you have a really good thrift store in your area, you can find a lot of awesome deals, a lot of great shirts, tops, jeans, all that kind of stuff, used clothes that are gently used, that don't even look used. The bigger the city, the more high-end. Usually you can find those secondhand stores that have even the luxury items used, which I wouldn't recommend buying them even used because you're still going to pay a lot of money for them, and it doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense to me to buy a Coach bag that's used for $80 because you would have had to spend, I don't know, $700 new on it, or I don't know how much a Coach bag is, but I'm guessing they're a lot. So, if you're still spending a ton of money on a purse, just because of the name, I don't know. It's up to you, it's your money, but if you want to live frugally, that's one thing I would definitely strike off my list, or those luxury items like that. So, what else can you think of that? 3, 2, 1. So let's take another sip of tea and see what else we can come up with. So I really want to tell you kind of why this sort of became an important thing for me to talk about on my channel. So I have some friends. Actually, before I go into that, I should probably tell you the very last thing that will help you save money and save time and keep you from all the stress and struggle. So I would avoid MLMs, multi-level marketing schemes. Anybody that's coming to you and telling you, oh, this is such a great opportunity, anybody can do it, it's just so easy, you can do it out of your home, all you gotta do is invest such and such amount of money, you don't even have to invest anything, it's so easy. So I call these companies multi-level manipulators. So a lot of the people that are in these companies believe what they're doing and are not malicious. Let's just put that out on the table, because I have friends in multi-level marketing companies and they just want to do good things for themselves. It makes them feel better to be in a group of people with a goal in mind, and there's all these seminars and conferences that really get you going and really get you, ready to go and ready to sell and ready to improve your life. But unfortunately, they do not work. They do not work, and it's a manipulation. So you should look at the statistics, watch videos on the negative side of things, and look at all of the negative aspects of MLMs. You will spend more than you make, guaranteed, most of the time. If you're breaking even, you're among 10% that break even. And if you are paying bills, you're probably around the 10%. If you're a millionaire in these companies, you're the 1%. So what I mean is, only 1 or 2% of the people in these companies actually become multimillionaires. So it's a lie, don't believe it. don't waste your time with it. Don't spend your money on it. Now, I know there's another aspect of MLMs that is really attractive. It's like, oh, improve your self-image, improve your life, become better at talking to people, become better at networking, so on and so forth. Well, that is all well and good, but you can do those things for free without all of the hassle of being manipulated constantly. So I would definitely say you can go on YouTube and watch self-help videos, you can read books and all of that kind of stuff and get the same, if not better, advice than you can from these companies. Now, I understand the aspect, especially if you're a loner or you're poor and you don't have a lot of money and you really want to get ahead in life and you're lonely. I understand the appeal of these companies, but it's something you really want to avoid. Even when they say, oh no, we're not like the other ones. Oh no, we're not a pyramid scheme. They're lying. They are. So, the story that I want to discuss, to talk about, is some friends of mine are in an MLM. Some friends of mine are in an MLM. Blah. And they were telling me this story about their diamonds or their higher ups that were coming to this meeting with some of the lower downs, whatever you want to call them, level downs. And they both came in with these ankle length expensive fur coats. They walked through this steakhouse. It wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't a fancy motel. It was just a regular run-of-the-mill steakhouse, and they walked through and everyone was like, ooh, are they movie stars? Ew, oh my gosh, oh, they're so special. And the story, I love my friends, but the story, every time I hear it, just makes me want to gag. I think it's totally trashy to do that. And I know what their goal is. They're showing the dream, they're living the dream, they're showing what everyone can accomplish if they just put their heart and soul and mind and money into it. And it's a lie. Great, those people are successful and they want to keep that money rolling. So how do they do that? They fool everyone into thinking that you too can do it. And I just think it's trashy. There's no class involved with that. And the fact that you can't see that it's a manipulation, it's tragic because there's so many people that believe it. There's so many people that believe that they can get that lifestyle and they want that lifestyle, and I don't get the appeal. If I have $3 million in the bank, the last thing I'm going to spend money on is matching fur coats me and my husband can wear down the street. You know what I mean? It's preposterous. It's something people do. Now there's this comparison with old money and new money. It's something people with new money do. So maybe 1 or 2 generations tops, they do this. And I know it's a judgment. I'm making a judgment, but I'm going to drink another cup of tea and shut up about it. So, if you're trying to live that type of lifestyle where you can be flashy, where you can wear fur coats all the time, where you can pull off the whole Kardashian lifestyle where you're living in these mansions and you're doing this and you're doing that, I just don't feel like it's a genuine way to live life. I don't feel like there's such thing as a finish line in life. Like, oh, you've made it. You have made it. You have the $1 million in the bank and you've got the nice car and la la la. You know, it's great to be secure. It's great to have money in the bank. It's great to be able to spend money and travel and do all of those things. But in this day and age, it's just turned into this kind of, sorry about the loud car. They're showing off their car on the road. Guaranteed it's probably not a Bentley. But anyhow, I digress. So, if you're trying to spend money like that, and if you have $1 billion in the bank and you want to gild your house with gold, go for it. More power to you. But if you live in an apartment and you have a minimum wage job or you're middle class and you're trying to live like you are a millionaire or a billionaire, you're gonna fall. Guaranteed, your tower is shaky and it's gonna come crumbling down because you're getting into debt up to your eyeballs, or you're making bad investments, or you're doing things that just make no sense. So, I know I didn't go into details or talk about a lot of the ways that you can live a frugal life. I just threw in a couple of things in there. And the reason for that is I am not an expert on how to save money. I simply know a few tips and tricks to kind of get around certain things and save a little bit of money here and there. And I think it's important that this conversation continues. I want to know what you do to stay frugal. What do you do to save money? What do you do to make money? What do you do to kind of balance your life out? Do you agree? Do you disagree with the things I've said? All of that jazz. All of that stuff's important. Excuse me. One more sip of tea. There are so many tips and tricks out there, so many, millions I'm sure, that you can go and look up yourself. Figure out a way to save money. Find a way to do something different than other people are doing it. If it means saving a little money, that's great. And live your life as well as you can in the moment. In other words, if you're always constantly chasing that horizon, you're never going to get there. You're never going to get there because it's great to have goals, but you're never going to get there if you're constantly looking at the horizon and not at your own feet and not in your own environment. If you can't sit and be glad of that, at least in the moment, a little bit, then you're never going to enjoy that horizon, even if you were to ever make it, which you won't. Like, even if you get the $1 million in the bank, you will have sacrificed a lot to get there because it takes work. Is it worth the sacrifice? And what are you spending that money on when you get there? Is it frivolous? Is it meaningful to you? What are the things that you're spending your money on? Well, that is my ramble for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Hit the like button, subscribe, and the little bell icon to get notified when I make a new video. And thanks so much for joining me. And we'll talk to you again soon.